And it looks like we are going free. How is everybody doing today? It's a wonderful spring day. The energy of the fight for white well-being, of the struggle and service to white well-being fills us all, doesn't it? As we move forward toward that recapturing of our destiny. If you all could, please like the stream. Make sure you're subscribed or still subscribed to the channel and ring the bell. I have here I have all of my screens open. Everything should be working well. If you all have noticed, I have responded to the anti-whites the way I promised to respond, which was subscribing to 2 more platforms for every one they censor me from. I am still, as far as I know, there's the Great Phoenix Fire. Great to see you. There's Sirp. Thank you for being here, good brother. A man that is tireless. It's breakfast time. There's the great Roy Danton is here. Getting this off to a great start. We're going to be talking today about meme-pathogens, MPs, and we'll start that in just a little bit. If you all have any questions, and we could talk about some of what was talked about on Tutar before coming over here, or anything else, we can talk about that. I think I'd like to also know, for those of you, let's see, Net Company 3 says, let's go no white guilt. Amen to that. Well said. There's Fred. Great to see you. Ron, great to see you. Make sure these are properly updating. And it appears that they are. Enemies of the people. Where's Jared? No white guilt, he asks. Well, Jared will be appearing on some of these Going Free streams. This is a Going Free stream, not a tap stream, or not tap after hours, or it's late night somewhere, all of which Jared appears on. But he will be appearing on some of these as well, especially as we dig a little deeper into the doctrine of going free. As things get more intellectually complicated, he will definitely be here lending his profound intelligence to our discussions. Let's see, the Thin Red Line is here. Good to see you. Andre, great to see you as well. We have Underhill writing, changing YouTube location to US allows me to watch videos, but not to see them listed on your videos page. So does that mean that you mean you're able to see the live stream, but you're not able to see any of my other videos that I've done in the past? Anything that is up on my channel? That's an interesting question. It does seem to be a bit different for each of the European countries. The governments, they seem to be going out of their way. This doesn't seem to be like a uniform thing where YouTube or the European Union or the Schengen zone has some sort of office, and it's just a handful of people that are deciding, okay, press that button, make this go away. I see Laura. Great to see you here with us today. It doesn't appear to be that. It appears to be the individual governments of all of these countries are coming to the conclusion that the doctrine of going free is genuinely dangerous for their domination and control over their populations, and then concluding that they need to prevent that doctrine from the doctrine of going free, the AAP, properly called the Archetype Alignment Protocol, from reaching their populations. And so that's why there seems to be some discrepancy. This is the information that I'm receiving. I can watch all your videos, but your videos page says displays no videos. I have to find them. I can see content on your homepage, though. Interesting. What about my playlists? Are you able to see videos under my playlists? And Underhill, did you receive my email that I sent you earlier today? Ask you that. Okay, and folks, if you haven't, could you please tweet the stream, gab the stream, post it to Minds, post it to VK, post it to Facebook. Let everybody know that we are gathered here today. We're going to be learning some about meme-pathogens. This is a powerful show. We're going to get you a lot of powerful information that will help you to cure yourself of the meme-pathogens that are in your system, these infections with which you are brainwashed and is undermining you in so many ways that as you come further to know and understand exactly what a meme-pathogen is and what they do to you, how they limit you, how they circumscribe your abilities, decision making, etc., that once you understand this, you'll really begin to grapple with the reality of it, and then become more inflamed and impassioned about ridding yourself of these things and inoculating yourself and especially your children. I see Jilly Storm in the chat. Great to see you. I love Going Free Weekly. Your sermons are fiery. Thank you very much, Jilly. I had a couple of rants over on Tutar today. Lloyd writes, Native American Indian, Cherokee, no white guilt. Stop this far left-wing liberal madness, indoctrination. Well, we like to say anti-white, left-wing, and liberal are both subsets in the superset that is anti-white. There are many reasons for saying anti-white rather than breaking it down into these subsets, unless you're talking about some sort of academic situation. But in general conversation, we just say anti-white, and we're going to be very scrupulous about using the lexicon and the dialectics that are prescribed by the AAP, the Archetype Alignment Protocol, because this is the lexicon, these are the dialectics that undermine anti-whiteism, and you could not have a greater proof of concept than to have numerous governments that are these regimes that are run by anti-whites concluding that this medicine may not and must not reach their populations. So let's see what else we have here. Enemies of the People writes, please give us a taste of Tutar 100. Colette is so peevish. You mean like a little sneak peek into what's coming? It's going to be a longer show than normal, and we have a whole star-studded guest lineup. It's going to be very exciting next week on Wednesday. So make sure that you are there to catch the 100th episode of This Week on the Alt-Right. There's Ryan Manley. Great to see you. Eric Anderson, good to see you. Remember, folks, that if you want me to see your comments, you can just write them in the chat section. If you want to up the chance of me seeing the comment or question, tag me with your comment or question. And if you want it to be absolutely read, then make sure to super chat it, and you can do that by way of the traditional means here on YouTube, or you can dig down in the description and find the familiar alternative and super chat by way of that familiar alternative. And it looks like Roy Danton just super chatted $4.99. Should we also use the term anti-white in Europe? Would it be more advisable to say anti-English or anti-German, depending on the country? No, you should say anti-white. The reason why is we don't want to open the door. Well, there are many reasons, but one that I will mention right away is we don't want to open the door to these long-standing animosities that already exist between different countries and different ethnicities in Europe. The English are not attacked because, let's take a step back. The English, we know that English people are whites. No one else is English but whites. There's no, I mean, we can say that, you could say that there's a paper Englishman or a paper German or a paper Frenchman, and that a non-white person can be given documentation, some legal fiction that says, okay, now you are an Englishman. We know that England exists only in the biosphere of white people, and therefore wherever you put white people, there can be an England. If you take the white people out of England and you put them on the moon, then that is where England is. That is where the UK is. It doesn't matter how many non-white people learn how to speak with the different English accents or learn English history or speak the English language. They are not England. They cannot recreate England, and they cannot sustain England. Having said that, the attack is not on the English. First because the anti-whites define the English as anyone of any race, any religion can be English. So that it will confuse your prospects. If you say it's an attack on the English, you then would have to describe why it's not a non-white is not technically or legitimately or spiritually or biospiritually English. And that is going to just lose you the prospect. It's going to lose you the awakening that you could give to your brother or sister in that moment. So you want to say white. The other reason for that is that if you say that the attack is on white people, it means that you as a white person can't escape it. If you are a white Englishman, then conceivably you could escape the anti-English sentiment by moving to Norway, by moving to France, and then just adopting a new ethnicity. You could escape it. You can't escape this if you're white. So that is why we say anti-white rather than anti-English or anti-French. Just some of the reasons, but that's a fantastic question, actually, Roy. Thank you for asking it, because I've had it before, and it is the kind of question that many people would come to quite naturally in pursuit of serving white well-being. So thank you much for that. Fred says, what did you think about Mark using white genocide instead of white erasure? Mark started using white genocide, as I understand, long before I was on the scene advocating for white erasure. I'm sure if we broke down a face-to-face scenario of someone who is going free and a prospect, and were to explain that white genocide is going to draw up this certain imagery, whereas white erasure does not. And in fact, white erasure is plainly obvious. Mark is a really bright guy. He would clearly say, well, in that sales situation, white erasure is going to be more effective than white genocide. And that is what we're talking about here. We're talking about making you more powerful. We're talking about you winning people over to white well-being. We're talking about you defeating anti-whites in conversations that you have with them. That's what this is all about. When Mark started spreading white genocide, he was in a position of a spokesman. He was in a position of someone to make the decision that I'm going to push this concept of white genocide into the population and see if it takes root, see if people start talking about it. He mentioned, I think he said Tucker Carlson had mentioned it somewhere. And of course, people like Tucker or other intellectuals and their audiences who may, or probably don't though, have the patience to listen to the full definition of what genocide means, and who may, if they're fair people, if they're fair-minded, will grant you that under the expanded definition of white genocide, that yes, indeed, what is happening is genocide, white genocide. But with the vast majority of people that you are going to be in contact with, they're not going to grant you an expanded definition of genocide. And furthermore, we are talking about being able to convey a message to someone in a way that converts them to white well-being, in a way that opens their eyes and gets them wanting to go free. And therefore, you're not going to be able to take a lot of detours of explanation after explanation after explanation to get them to follow you along. You've got to use the logic and the language that enables them to easily follow you from A to B to C, and then for them to be on their own, to then see those things taking place in the world and come to those conclusions themselves. So it's a great example, and thank you for asking the question, Fred, of how something used at one level by one person in one scenario, in this case, Mark being a spokesman and a public figure. For example, Donald Trump could start saying, he won't, but Donald Trump could start saying white genocide, and then he could explain what white genocide means, and there will be, or genocide in toto, and then there will be a certain percentage, it'll be small, but a certain percentage of people that will say, so genocide also means X, Y, and Z, and therefore be able to follow him. but that's not going to be the case. Think about trying to sell, not going to be the case with most, by far, most people and recipients of the message. And certainly nearly all people who are trying to help others to go free are going to fail miserably by saying white genocide rather than white erasure. You've already won the conversation. Just think about this. When you say white erasure, you've already won the conversation because your interlocutor, your prospect, has seen white erasure in his or her life, has seen whites disappearing, has seen the names disappearing, has seen the statues disappearing. So you've already won when you say white erasure. But when you say white genocide, you've lost. Now you're in a hole that you have to dig yourself out of. Now you have to explain how genocide is just not all camps. It's not all starvation. It's not all digging massive pits and everybody shot in the head and thrown into the hole in the ground. That's just another argument that you would have to win then. And then you would probably have to say, I'll get back to you with the document from the UN. It's just not going to be as successful. Let's see, Steampunk. I have learned a lot from your show and have shared it with my audience. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you very much for being here and for sharing your testimony. If you are, ladies and gentlemen, if you are learning, if you are growing, if you're going free, you're having successes, I want you to share your testimony. I want you to come here in the chat and I want you to go into other chats and I want you to share your testimony with those people. That is how this will spread. We already have the ultimate proof that this works. And that is when these anti-whites are shutting down this content from reaching their populations. Not just my body. It's not like I'm trying to travel to the Schengen zone or to the EU and they say, well, we don't want you here because you are a rabble rouser or you are so dignified that people will take everything that you say to heart and listen to you. No, it's these concepts. It's these concepts that they can't allow. That is when they talk about nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. This is it. These are the ideas whose time has come. That is what they fear. It's not Jason, it's these ideas. And so that is far more of an honor than banning me from entering their country. Because I'm just a body that I could repeat these things, but just banning me would be one thing. Banning my ideas is an immense honor. Okay, if you have not already, please, and we'll get into some of these notes that I have here quickly. If you have not, please tweet Gab the stream, post it on Minds, post it on Facebook, post it on VK. Let all of your circles of influence know about the stream, about going free, so that we can get as many people on board and going free as possible. All right. If there are any other questions, also, let me check and make sure. Ethan saying he has spread my message to 12 friends. That is fantastic. That is great news. I have been receiving, and I say it, there's DM, great to see you, DM. When people send me messages that, you know, their testimony of using some of these, some of the lexicon, some of the dialectics in their circles of influence, and they have these great successes, I'm always telling them to share that testimony elsewhere, because it is a phenomenal thing to see people go from that point of absolute timidity, absolute certainty that they're going to lose the discussion, because they've always lost the discussion with anti-whites. We have been trained to lose the argument with anti-whites while they have been trained to win the argument. It is always so invigorating and heartening to have someone reach out to me and say, I finally used your arguments, and I won. I defeated the anti-whites in the conversation. They look like fools. Or this person who otherwise always ignored me, always disagreed with me, finally heard what I had to say and is now asking more questions, is now going free. Enemies of the People writes, both you and Colette are interested in agitprop. Mark does graphics. Can we start to get your flyers, etc., on the streets? Yes, I'm going to be posting some flyers. And by the way, if you all out there, if anybody out there is great at making flyers or has a great flyer idea, reach out to me by way of my website, nowhiteguilt.org. There's the contact tab. Reach out to me with your ideas. If I think they will work, whether I'm right or wrong. I mean, I could be wrong. I tell this with everyone with whom I work, that you could be right, I could be wrong, and I could end up just, objectively, I could be wrong and end up overlooking something that would be a success. But if I think it's a great flyer, I will put it up on my nowhiteguiltcollectibles.com store and make it available for everyone to download and to distribute in their communities. Yeah, we need to be doing that. So I ask all of you to do that. If you have any ideas, please reach out to me with those ideas. If you have ideas for great graphics to put on T-shirts, for example, or hats and the like, reach out to me with those ideas, and we will talk about it. We want those sorts of things to work as billboards, as signage for white well-being. We want people to see it. Bumper stickers as well. If you have great ideas, we have bumper stickers that are going to be going up on No White Guilt Collectibles very soon. And I want to give a big thank you to Phoenix Fire, because for all the work she's doing on No White Guilt Collectibles, we have a whole her graphic that she used on the banner, the one you can see right here, is now on a host of items, including a baseball cap. Please, when you get an opportunity, head over there. If you see something you like, do purchase it, and use these things to spread white well-being. Use these things to reach out to folks, to start a conversation. And again, if you have ideas for great graphics, reach out to me. Something that will sell. I don't sell people on the idea of white well-being. I don't want people. We don't want ideas. We don't want graphics that are just going to like shock people. We don't want graphics that are just going to, if that's just the sole goal, is just to shock them. We don't want graphics that are going to offend everybody, but this tiny percentage. We want people to see these things, cause them to take a moment to say, what is that all about? And engender that desire to know more, engender that moment that really contradicts the cognitive dissonance, where they say, that's something completely outside of the world that I live in, and has spoken to me somehow. That is the kind of thing we're looking for. And maybe you are the kind of person who has those ideas, and they're brilliant, and you're driving around and you think of these brilliant ideas all of the time. If you are that person, reach out to me and let's work together. We need to be working together against these anti-whites. I am on, and you can check in the description, as I said, there's Mary Moon, great to see you. I am now on Spreaker podcast as well, and we will be uploading all of the shows to Spreaker, because I know many people have asked about being able to just listen to these while they're at work, etc., instead of having to play it by way of a YouTube video. Uses less of the battery, less of your data, less of everything on your phone. So as I said, I promise the anti-whites, you censor me from one platform, I join two more, and that is the way it's going to be. And I mentioned that in the show, Tutar, before going free today, and it bears mentioning again, and that is that we are in a fight. This is the real world. We are no longer in the nursery room. When we step out of the world of sports ball and work and consume, etc., produce and consume, when we step out of that world, we are into the world, particularly when we are trying to recapture our destiny. We are into the real world, into the jungle. And it is to our forefathers' credit that they were able to defeat the tribes that had tried to defeat us, that they were able to defeat disease, that they were able to defeat the vagaries of the environments, and then create this wonderful nursery room of Western civilization, so that they could have their children and their wives in this safe place. Regrettably, for many of us, though, we never realize that the law of the jungle is still the law of the world. We think that the nursery room that is Western civilization, this safe space, is the real world. And the truth could not be further from that. So when you get into the struggle, the fight, the service for white well-being to recapture our destiny, when you get into that, you realize that you are in a real fight. And in a real fight, and I likened it to the actual physical fights that I have been in over the years, regrettably, that in the midst of the fight, I can feel my lips swelling from being punched in the mouth. I can feel my eyelids swelling down from being punched in the eye. I could feel the earlobe torn away from the ear. I can feel when my teeth split through my lip, ripped it wide open. I could feel all of that in the middle of the fight. But if I focused on that rather than on defeating the opponent, my victimizer, if I focused on that, I would have never won those fights. So that is what we have to do. When the anti-whites make you feel afraid, when they dox you or they threaten to dox you, when they censor you from a platform, you have to realize this is a fight. You don't focus on those injuries. You focus instead on building up your presence again, joining new platforms as I have, and striking back with the love and the passion that we have to reach our brothers and sisters. When they mock you or threaten you, I have told many female content producers over the years who have reached out to me in fear and concern for themselves after having been threatened by anti-whites. I have told them, no, the thing to do now is to post twice as much material in love and blessing for our people. Be happier than you were in your previous videos and post more of them. That is the only way to put an end to those anti-white bastards and the threats they make, which are usually very successful against women, and understandably so, when they claim to know where you live and they're going to show up at your house and threaten your family and children. The only proper response is to take it up a notch. We have Mudfish saying that born guilty should be in every home. Amen. And thank you very much for that. Lloyd saying, I will share your message. Very good. Thank you, good sir. Seeing a lot of good people here. I see Hey You is here. Ethan asking, what about red-pilled half-whites? Everyone who wants to support white well-being is welcome. That is the reality. Whether they are full-blooded, half-blooded, it doesn't matter. If they want to serve white well-being, they are welcome to serve white well-being with us. The channel for free speech writes, what are your thoughts on half-white and half-brown people like me? Well, isn't that funny? I just answered that question. Chili Storm writes, Bond, Jason Bond. That's good. Thank you for that. All right, Dave writes, I've learned many practical things concerning language and effective communication from you. Thank you very much for saying that, Dave. Pass those on. Pass them on. Reach out to your circles of influence and share Going Free with them. This curative contagion is what is going to save us. That's the other element of what we were talking about on this week on the alt-right, which is that the malaise, you know, even as I said, the lugubriousness on Tutar that our people experience by all of the slights, all of the injuries that are happening to us, and all of what appears to be, and this is where it comes from, what appears to be the lack of progress, is born out of a misunderstanding of what victory is today. Victory today is shifting the context. It is not planting the flag on, pardon me, the victimizer's lawn. It is not planting the flag on the government buildings in our nations. No, victory today is shifting the influence or shifting the context to a situation where we can then have more opportunities, and we will be adaptable and take advantage of those opportunities. That is victory today. Every small step that you can take, which might mean just talking to one person a week, if that's all you can do, is talk to one person a week and try to bring them over to white well-being. Share some of the dialectics with them. Use the lexicon on them. If that's all you can do, do it. Because every little bit is put together with the total. Every little bit that you can add. If you can add a grain of sand to what somebody else's dump truck of sand, it is one grain of sand more. And if we have enough of us adding grains of sand, then we will truly have a force that will make change and that will bring about a new context for us. That is victory today. Absolutely nothing to be depressed or black-pilled about. Absolutely nothing. It's the same way when the slights happen, when you feel the lips swelling, when you feel that the nose is broken in the middle of the fight, you just keep fighting. You don't stop. You do like I did. When the anti-whites censor you, you sign up to 2 more platforms. So if you have not already, please gab, tweet, like, subscribe, ring the bell, put it up, post the stream on Facebook. Let me see what I have here. I mentioned Phoenix Fire. Oh, I want to mention Julie as well. I will mention her again tomorrow for the fabulous Easter banner that she did. She's been doing banners for all of the holidays for half a year now, and she plans on continuing the rest of the way. We have if we could get a round of applause for Julie in the chat, that would be fantastic, because she is doing a beautiful job. All of the banners have been magnificent, and it does help to create a community feeling because we are a community here in the Cause for White Wellbeing. I see DM says, always a pleasure to be here. We have a super chat from Brunette, super chatting with $5. Thank you, NWG. You're always an inspiration. Thank you for your kind investment in the Cause for White Wellbeing. And we are going to continue being optimistic and continue succeeding despite what the anti-whites do. You have the governments of Europe that try to shut me down, and we immediately find ways around their censorship. That is going to be the way it is. It's always going to be a cat and mouse game in the real world. Let's see. You know, last week it looked like there were, as I looked back days after, it looked like a couple of super chats came in that did not show up for me. This would be a great example of the glitch banning that the anti-whites, that I predicted a long time ago, and that the anti-whites are finally doing. So if super chats come through and you are able to see them in the chat, and I have not mentioned them, please tag me and mention that there was a super chat, and I will look back for that super chat. I absolutely want to catch every investment in the Cause for White Wellbeing. So let's see. We have Lou writing, read my super chat, lad. What am I, psychic today? Where is so you super chatted. All right. This might be a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I'm scanning through it. I see Eke Lux is here. Great to see you here. Poseidon is here. The great Poseidon. I was on with Poseidon the other night. Great to see you, brother. I showed up and we had a great conversation. Let's see, Mr. Green is here. In your opinion, do you need to resort to violence to save our race? We have to deal, Mr. Green, with the current context. And that is the only context that makes sense to deal with. If you have a lemonade stand, you focus on how to get more people to stop by your lemonade stand. You don't focus on how to go public with your lemonade stand. You're nowhere close to going public with your lemonade stand. By that, I'm talking about being able to offer shares in your lemonade stand as a major company. So we need to focus on the context we are in and clearing the hurdles that are in front of us. The speculation about what future contexts might hold can be multifarious. There are a great many things that can take place in the future that are not predictable at the moment, certainly from the perspective of this context. In this context, the ideas I've talked about before of violently resisting the governments in the West is suicidal, but it is also counterproductive, because you cannot hold both ideas in your mind. You cannot hold the idea that you're going to physically fight the government of your country and you're going to spread white well-being. The two are impossible because they both take up too much time. You cannot go north as you go south. So that's something that needs to be appreciated. If you are going to consider violence, first of all, not only do we reject violence in the Cause for White Wellbeing, but we reject that any good would come to us by way of violence. And every time we see a perfect example of these certain groups of people who were advocating for violence, who were advocating for civil war, and then you had people go out and commit shootings. Not long after that, you had another guy who got arrested for planning it, and then you had another guy who carried out some atrocity. Did they get civil war? Was there a snowball's chance in hell? These are lessons that need to be learned. And they should be easily learned. So instead, no, we need to be going out and bringing this message of love and redemption to our friends, family, and strangers. We have DM super chatting with $5. The scars of fighting against anti-whites are not being ashamed of. The scars of fighting against anti-whites are not being ashamed of. If your nose breaks, carry it with honor. Indeed. Very well said. Thank you for the investment in the cause of white well-being. Okay, Ethan saying that's what I thought too to my comment earlier. The name's guilt, no white guilt. I like that. Very good. Very good, Farmer. Let's see. What else do we have here? I've been looking toward building and restoring a community with my blood brother and family. That's my way to preserve through tribulations that are to come. Yes, indeed. When it comes to dealing with your environment, like the sort of things that the hiccups in the supply chain and this sort of thing that happens by way of hurricanes and the like, you should prep for that. You can prep, for a matter of months, but the reality is you're not going to be able to prep in any significant way beyond that. It's just going to take too much time. You're going to end up like all of these old codgers that I knew that spent fortunes on building bunkers and the like, and meanwhile their families went to hell, their communities went to hell, and their toilet paper that they bought in the thousands and thousands of rolls to serve them deep into the future, once everything fell apart, has disintegrated, and it's just a total waste of money. So all you can do is prep for a certain amount of time, and if for no other reason, all the medications that you need, that your family members need, your loved ones need, they're not going to be available. You're not going to be able to buy an infinite amount. Are you going to go rob the drug manufacturer for thousands and thousands of the drug you need, or the family member who the drug that person needs to live? No, we need for the supply chains to continue to work. Best case scenario is that, and again, this is beyond our current context, so it is ultimately irrelevant, but best case scenario is that everything runs along as smoothly as possible and we recapture our destiny behind the scenes. That is best case scenario, where people in the halls of government, whites there, decide that they are now in service to white well-being, and they say to the remaining anti-whites and the remaining non-white anti-whites and white anti-whites, they say enough is enough and it's over for you all. And then they just claim the seats of power. Now, from our context, that's not possible right now, but we don't know what a future context will look like. It could look like, we don't know. We hope that it doesn't, because we don't want to live in environments that are coming apart. In environments that are coming apart like that. So let's see. Lou seems to have super chatted. Do this, Lou. Tag me and put your whatever you wrote and what you super chatted into your comment. Pull up the super chats by way of another means. See if it has been denied me in on my screen by way of, what would be interesting is to have a completely different account pulled up on another computer and see what comes through, as opposed to my account and what comes through. Roy Danton, super chatting with $4.99. Thank you very much. That toilet paper thing reminds me of that amazing episode of Two Talk when I was working out on the treadmill and Mark brought that up. Well, actually, it's I don't know if perhaps Mark mentioned the story that I shared, or he laughed about it. But yeah, it was an old guy that had decided to spend his life building a bunker and prepping for the end of the world that was a day away. And this was, like 50 years ago. It was a day away. The anti-whites were going to destabilize the government and all was going to be thrown into anarchy. It was always a day away. And yeah, the toilet paper, he finally decided he would go use the toilet paper that he had spent many thousands of dollars on and had squirreled away in the expensive bunker that he would. Think of all the good he could have done with that money for white well-being. And he could have bought billboards. He could have hired planes with the banners trailing behind me. He could have done so much good for white well-being. And instead, he's doing this. But he went down to get the toilet paper, and the toilet paper was disintegrating like I think I likened it to his children's future. Just disintegrating for that short-sighted idea that he was going to, that the world was about to end, and he was going to ride it out like a coward in his bunker with all of his guns and his toilet paper. Lou says he asked, when can we get a shirtless stream? Well, I definitely did not see that super chat. That's not quite. But by the way, Roy, thank you very much for the investment in the cause of white well-being. No, I definitely did not see the, let's see here. I do have this other mechanism. I did not see the super chat that asked about me doing a stream shirtless. I will probably do a stream in the future, a health and fitness stream where I will demonstrate some different types of lifts that, some different types of workouts that people can do. I don't think I'll be shirtless, but I think the anti-whites would probably run crazy with that. Let's see here. Look, YouTube is definitely. So there it is, Lou. You super chatted £2 and said, can we get a shirtless stream sometime, Jason? Wow. That absolutely did not come up on my thread. That is amazing. All right. Well, I'm going to try to keep this open as well, and I'll try to keep an eye on that to make sure that we really don't. Again, if you all could help me with that, if a super chat goes by and there's no mention of it, please speak up. Lou says, don't tease us. I don't know. We'll see. I might just be in a regular workout shirt. What else do I have? I wanted to mention that I am on Spreaker now. I did want to also mention about the rebuilding of Notre Dame Cathedral. I mentioned it earlier. Christianity has been defeated by international finance a long time ago. There are two forms of power in human society. That is faith and of what can be either to the physical form in the here and now by way of something supernatural, or by way of something that happens after life, or the other alternative to that is the ability to exchange one's desires, and the medium being currency, exchange one's desires and to satisfy those desires with their thought, with their loyalty, with their deeds. And so that is finance. Those are the two supreme forms of power in human society. And finance, the ability to exchange one's desires for their labor, for their intelligence, etc., and the medium being currency, that defeated Christianity a long time ago. Anti-Whiteism has also since defeated Christianity because the finance, those who print the currency are by way of their deeds. And so anti-Whiteism dominates our countries today as a consequence. The boss always gets what he or she wants. That's how the world works. Everyone should understand that. And so now what you have in Christianity is you have priests and preachers and the like who interpret Christianity by way of these anti-white lenses, which we will be talking about in just a moment. We're going to dig into it quickly. And by viewing and interpreting the doctrine that way, it has effectively become something that is not Christianity, or Christianity in name alone. Now, I understand that there are Christians out there who do not agree with anti-Whiteism, who reject anti-Whiteism, and who embrace a more literal interpretation of Christianity. That does not, what I'm saying right now, does not discount them one iota, or their faith or their belief in Christ and the Christian God, etc. I'm talking about the regime, the major churches, and as a consequence, I foresee that it is more likely than not that Notre Dame will, as I said on Tutar, to some degree, in its rebuilding, is going to be reshaped into a monument, a temple to the cult of multiracialism, of anti-Whiteism. So there are going to be these new motifs, not the Christian motifs. Those will still be present as more anachronistic. There'll be these new motifs of maybe even homosexuals, homosexual women together, homosexual men together. There'll be this new absolutely multiracial cast, if you will, that will be built into these new temples of anti-Whiteism. And I can easily foresee that this then would happen throughout the totality of the West. You all should remember that the way the anti-Whites came to dominate the West was not by this erroneous idea that they worked from the bottom up. How many of you out there think that the anti-Whites came to dominate things by working from the bottom up, that they got into the institutions at the janitor level and then they just steadily worked their way up? This is a really common notion in the white positive sphere, and it could not be more incorrect. How many of you out there think that that's how it worked? Poseidon mentioned a particular family, and he's right about that. I won't say their name on the stream because they do actually hold the power, and the stream will be shut down as a consequence, I'm sure. Syrup, super chatting with 10 pounds. Glad I caught it. If you're going to prep anything, prep your mind and prep your circle of friends. Those things cannot be rusty or sluggish. Give yourself the tools and the backup you need to serve your people. Very well said, Syrup. Doing double duty today, moderating and super chatting. A great investment in the cause of white well-being. Mr. Green says, I'm glad you have started talking about this. Are you talking about what they're going to do to Notre Dame Cathedral? Daedalus writes, they got there by controlling the distribution of information and the power of money and usury. Precisely. That is by way of controlling the finances, they were able to then take over the nerve centers of these different communities in the Western civilization, in whatever country you pick. So, for example, they wouldn't go after the least popular newspaper. They would buy the nerve center, the one that all of the other newspapers respected, the one that all of the other newspapers looked to and cited many times as the authorities in news reportage, etc. Once they control the nerve center, they then can radiate the influence that already existed in that entity out to the totality of the community. This is how they went about taking over our civilizations. Not this idea that they became the janitors and then they became the janitors managers and they just worked up. That's hogwash. It's short-sighted. It's not what took place whatsoever. It's misattribution. It's a classic case of misattribution. So you can look at the Notre Dame Cathedral now, and you can make some predictions based on reality. If they recreate Notre Dame Cathedral with all of these new, if they remake it into a temple to anti-Whiteism, you will then see that nerve center radiates its influence out to other cathedrals and churches around the world. For Christians out there, for people who regularly attend church, I know many who have stopped attending, and now they just have their own Sunday little gatherings. Sometimes it's just a couple families that get together and will read from the Bible because they don't want to be subjected to these anti-white ideas as the Word of God. And in fact, that is why I walked away from Christianity. I say that I'm open to God appearing before me and welcoming me back. But I attended a great many churches, a great many different denominations as well. And everywhere I went, anti-whiteism was preached as the Word of God. And so that was, at one point, enough was enough, and I was done with that. And so I had to move on. If it's different at your church, God bless you. And if there are others in your community you think that could benefit, other Christians benefit from attending your church, make sure you reach out to them. Oh, next week, or the next time we do a Going Free, I may discuss what I refer to as the elect, the vague, and the victimizer. And so look forward to that. If you have any questions about that, reach out to me before we get there, and I will try to answer them during that Going Free stream. But you have the elect, the vague, and the victimizer. That will be coming up. What else do we have here? Okay, Mr. Green was talking about Notre Dame. Great to see so many heroes in our community that show up here. Okay, let's go ahead and see if, since we're moving on in time, let's go ahead and see if, Lou is asking, am I a boxer when they don't have a ball? But I have fought myself. I've been in the ring myself. So I played sports, as most of you know. But I occasionally do watch a fight here or there, very rarely. We are going to be talking about meme-pathogens today. And I'm not going to be talking about necessarily the specific when the infections begin today. We can handle that in another stream, or how the infections control you almost utterly. We can save that for another stream as well. I will also say that the opposite of a meme pathogen, I've referred to two different ways, so that you are not confused. It is both a TFT, a tactical frame of thought, and it is also an MC, which is a meme curative. So I just wanted to make that clear as well. So the first thing I'm going to do here is define a meme pathogen. If we have no other questions, boxing is a great workout. You can get into great shape boxing, but getting hit in the head is not good for you. Underhill says, but would you describe yourself as an atheist? No, I'm definitely not an atheist. I 100% believe that there is a creator, have faith that there is a creator, and he may well be named in the Christian Bible and in the Christian religion. But at present, those who preach that doctrine preach anti-whiteism rather than that doctrine, and so they disgust me. I mentioned before, at the final church I was at, these imbeciles had resources, they had money, they had clothing, they had canned food, they had everything for non-white illegals who were living in the community. But then when there was an appeal by legal white immigrants to the country who were destitute, suddenly this church, these Christians, didn't have any more resources. Suddenly they couldn't help. So they were fine breaking the law. They could dig down and find the food and the finances they need to bring more non-white people into the country, even illegally, which, by the way, in the United States is a crime that can be punished, that can be punishable with execution, bringing someone illegally into the country. But when it came to white people, suddenly they just didn't have enough to give. So that's the kind of thing that we have at most churches. regrettably. Certainly not all. And it certainly is not representative of the good Christian parishioners who attend those churches. They're being misled by their pastors. Roy Danton, super chatting with $4.99. Next week is May 1st, which has turned into this day where communists trash cities. Can we somehow recapture the narrative of this day? That's a great question, and we should focus on that, about what can be done. It's entirely possible that we can, certainly not this year, but in the future, prep the population for the ramifications of anti-whiteism. So in other words, get out there with messaging to the public that you are going to see coming up in the next week a great example of what anti-whites are going to do to civilization on a much broader scale. And then, of course, the anti-whites won't be able to stop themselves from behaving the way they do. DeLorean driver tells me to give myself some credit for the work that I do. Well, thank you very much for that statement. Have you read The Clash of Civilizations by Samuel Huntington? If yes, what do you think of it? I have, and if it's the book I'm thinking of, it was a very long time ago, and I'll have to pick it up again to refresh my memory. Thank you very much, by the way, Roy, for the investment in the cause of white well-being. I see Resurrection Jose says I'm a bit more on terra firma by giving off at times the impression that it's straight across the board. That said, I'd love to know which church that was. I attended a great many different denominations. That last one was, I think the last one was Presbyterian, but I don't know that there was a denomination that I didn't attend. It became a ridiculous pursuit trying to find a church that did not preach anti-whiteism as the word of God. I mean, it was just like everything was interpreted by way of that doctrine. All right, so let's get into this. Make sure, folks, that if you haven't, tweet it, gab it. If you have, do it again. Share it with your friends on VK, on Facebook, on Minds. The word meme pathogen, the word meme specifically, M-E-M-E, was coined by Richard Dawkins in his book, The Selfish Gene. It refers to ideas, beliefs, and behavior patterns which spread from person to person through a society in a manner analogous to the transmission of genes. A pathogen is anything that can cause sickness. Sickness interferes with the proper functionality of a living organism. When I first coined the meme pathogen as these anti-white precepts with which that we were being infected, with which you and your loved ones are being infected, I was confronted with the challenge of educating people on what a meme was. Thankfully, in the interim, meme came to popularity during Donald Trump's run for presidency, and now pretty much everyone knows what it means. So it is sort of as though the fates have smiled upon me and done the job for me. It would have been far more difficult to educate everyone on what a meme is if it had not become popular by way of Donald Trump's campaign. From the very beginning of our lives, as I said, we're infected with MPs, but I'm not going to be getting into exactly when that infection begins, how it begins at that age, the means by which, all of the different means by which the infections, these MPs, are delivered, and how they govern our lives. We can get into all of that in a different stream. We absolutely will get into it in a different stream because all of that is extremely important. By the way, much of this is in the first edition of Go Free. All of it will be in the second edition of Go Free, which I believe I will be making an electronic version first so that I can get it out to you all. We can go through it together where you all have ideas or suggestions or criticisms. We can make changes to the book on the fly. And then once we do enough of that, once it is sort of tested out there in the real world a little bit, we can then turn it into a print version as well. Looks like DW just super chatted $5. Thank you very much for the kind investment in white well-being. Should we volunteer and help people as a group? Let's reform May Day to be something positive. Absolutely. We need to take advantage of every opportunity to spread the message of white well-being. White well-being can be sown into every single celebration, every single event like this, the same way anti-whiteism can be sown into it. White well-being can be sown into every Christian uh, Sunday's lesson, just as anti-whiteism is. Christianity can be viewed through the lens of white well-being, just as anti-whiteism is. And I would argue that the only proper view of Christianity is through the lens of white well-being, because it makes no sense if we cease to exist, uh, that the doctrine exists, because, for God's sakes, do I really have to say? I mean, we have made Christianity what it is today. It doesn't exist without the Western mind. You look at what has happened to Christianity, where there isn't constant contact with white people, and you see how it changes to begin to reflect the non-white groups in which the doctrine exists, and it begins to become something that looks almost unspeakably different from what we gave to them when we gave them the religion. So pay attention to that. Now we're gonna some examples of general meme pathogens. This is just like the general themes that run through meme pathogens that you will experience in your life. Westmen are hateful, either consciously or unconsciously or both, that we are uniquely wicked, that we are morally inferior, that we are intellectual thieves, that we're predators, corruptors, persecutors, that we are exploiters, that we are slave traders. Does anybody else have some ideas on some general themes of what Western kind is? General themes that are used by the anti-whites and then with which they build MPs. There are some inescapable conclusions from those general themes, and I will keep an eye out for anyone. Roy says he has one. He's going to type it in now. I will write down a couple of inescapable conclusions of the MPs. Now, these inescapable conclusions. This is how. Understand, folks. This is it's a very intelligent way of controlling human behavior. You set up this circuit board, effectively. This is what the anti-whites do. They set up this circuit board of possibilities, and all of the possibilities that you could arrive at on this circuit board of this context serve anti-whiteism. That is how this is so effective. So some of these inescapable conclusions are that Western kind is responsible for the historical lack of achievement and failures of non-whites. Western kind's accomplishments are products of white privilege, undeserved wealth, and the exploitation of non-whites. Non-whites are peoples, such as Arabs, Asians, African Americans, but white people are not a people. Westmen concerned with white well-being and Western kind are psychotic, or they are dangerous or genocidal. Westmen are intrinsically villainous. This is another inescapable conclusion by way of those general bases from which they form these meme pathogens. Non-whites are intrinsically virtuous. And whenever a non-white does anything bad, he or she has only done bad because they have been driven to it, either directly by a white person or by a context that a white person has established. So let's look back here and see what we have here. Odin writing that we are oppressors and destroy unique cultures. Absolutely, that is a meme pathogen. Is Martin that we appropriate and take ideas from non-whites? Precisely. See, Odin, that we are guilty for the sins of our forefathers. Right, exactly. The sins that either are fabricated or the sins that were real. And of course, This is where a lot of white people may come to the erroneous conclusion that the anti-whites are hypocritical, because they'll say, if if you are guilty for something that a white person may or may not have done 200, 2,000 years ago, why isn't the brother of a non-white rapist guilty of the rape he committed today? By way of the anti-white logic, unless they are being hypocrites, then that should be the case. The brother is more guilty of the rape that was committed today than you are of an unrelated white person, or at least directly related white person 200 or 2,000 years ago. But they're not being hypocrites, because in both cases, they can inflict harm on you. That is the difference between this community and the rest of the white positive sphere. They continue to be mired in these erroneous ideas while you all are going free. Angharad Celtic super chatting $20. Thank you so much. The church has been systematically corrupted. All I heard of for years was Israel, and we have to teach Africans about being good Christians, no matter what they do to us. The self-abnegation is suicidal. Nope. Exactly. I heard the same thing. Just endlessly the same thing. In fact, in some of the most repulsive of individuals are those who claim to worship Jesus Christ, but instead worship Israeli Jews. Those are some of the most repulsive people that you can possibly meet. Thank you very much with that kind investment in the cause of white well-being. You are a great gem in our community. Celtic, really enjoy seeing you here with us. So let's keep moving forward. Let's keep going free, talking about how you all can become more powerful, more free, going more free every single day. Now, this is the next important thing about MPs. MP is the precept, the anti-white precept. I see Good Mackie is here. Good to see you. DW, good to see you. The MP is the precept, but the precept is not the only element of the MP. The MP is broken into two halves: the precept itself, such as whites are responsible for slavery, and then something called what I refer to as the SIM, the structural interpretive mandate. SIM. So you have the MP is broken into a precept and a SIM, a structural interpretive mandate, or mandates more effectively. So we can then break this down into an example. The SIM effectively is telling you what you are supposed to think about the precept, and what you are supposed to think about those who agree with it and those who disagree with it. Does that make sense? Does that make sense how the SIM works? Dave gives another great example, that we are colonizers. Every race of people has colonized, but for some reason, we are the only colonizers. Tells you everything you need to know. Cornock says that Sim was a city. I think you're talking about a game. Wasn't it called something like, I'm sorry, I'm not a gamer. So fortunately, I'm not a gamer. The games, they became, as the three-dimensional light patterns came into play, they made me sick. So I had to stop gaming, which was a good thing, because I put my energy into educating myself, reading books. Although I did have a guy who also educates himself, but he games as well, reach out to me about a game called Mortal Kombat. And the new edition has just come up, and it apparently is filled with anti-whiteism. We need to get him, though, if he's listening, to not refer to it as SJWs. That is a subset of anti-whites, and we view them as a single entity. So does everybody understand how the structural interpretive mandates work? You have a precept. It tells you that white people are slavers. And then the SIM tells you what you were supposed to think about that thought. Because if I just told you, or if the regime just told you white people are slavers, you could take that to mean anything. You could go awry from their plan. So instead, they tell you also what you're supposed to think about that precept, and more importantly, what you're supposed to think about those who agree with it and those who disagree with it. So we'll take that specific example of white people being slavers, or white people being uniquely responsible for slavery. And then I'm going to ask you all, what are you supposed to think about white people, the MP, that white people are uniquely responsible for slavery? First, I'm going to get to a super chat by Roy Danton, who just super chatted $50. Thank you, good sir, for your kind and generous investment in the cause of white well-being. He writes, this one should contain 3 MPs in one: the anti-white narrative of being an ally or a champion for either minorities or LGBT that is being taught in seminars at various companies these days, and presented as it was the ultimate virtue. Very well written, very well said, good sir. That is exactly right. Very often MPs don't occur alone. They are, and in another Going Free episode, we can talk about exactly how they are implemented. Very often they're joined. Several MPs come together. They're not just delivered one at a time, although they can be, but particularly for children. When it comes to adults, they will wed these like constellations of MPs together and deliver them to you that way, because by doing so, each one legitimizes the other. And it's a circular reason. It's a fallacy, but it works in the human brain. That's something else you have to appreciate when it comes to these infecting us with these ideas, is that the circular reasoning works effectively. So again, Roy, thank you very much for that. We should, if we can, get some applauding emojis for Roy's great investment in the cause. $50 to the cause of white well-being. Thank you very much for that. Dataless writes, everyone with pride is healthy unless it is a white person. Then it is supremacy. That's fantastic. You all are absolutely right. Another great example of an MP. Lisa P., great to see you here, writing that whites invented racism. Precisely, another great MP. Every group of human beings, every race has hated every other race on the basis of them being different from themselves. That is the reason why we have groups that are different from other groups, can be, and that will continue to be the case. The reason for this existence in the shape that it has arrived at us is because we fought to preserve that which we are. So every group has demonstrated what might be referred to by the anti-whites as racism. But remember, unless we are doing like we're doing here, which is citing specific MPs and the verbiage they use, we don't use their terminology of white oppression. Words like bigot, anti-Semite, hater, homophobe, all of that, those are words of white oppression. And when somebody uses one against you, you can say, you can demand to know of them. Don't just say, but demand to know of them why they use the verbiage of white oppression, why they're so anti-white. Okay, so what about the people that believe in this MP that whites are uniquely responsible for slavery? What have you been taught to think about them? Haven't you been taught that they are all good people? The kind of people who believe that whites are uniquely responsible for slavery, they're good people. You've been taught that. You've been taught that they are intelligent. You've been taught that they are educated, that they are good looking, that they make the right decisions in life, right? That's what you've learned about people who believe that whites are uniquely responsible for slavery. That is what has been seeded in your brain, that infection. And it goes nowhere, ladies and gentlemen. It is trapped there in your subconscious mind. Odin writes that they would have been much further along and better off without white intervention. Indeed, that's another great example of an MP. So glad that you all are just on the game, on the ball with these MPs in our world. This is the kind of thing. This is where our thinking needs to be. Okay? When you talk to your friends and family and strangers, you need to be able to list MPs to them from memory. You don't need to be able to cite chapter and verse of some esoteric book. You don't need to be able to cite a place and date of the event of something back in history. You need to be able to cite the MPs that they are going to see in their lives. All of this other stuff is play. All of these other conversations are play. They're just a waste of time. And for those, if you want to keep losing as a people and as an individual, then keep doing that sort of thing. Keep citing chapter and verse of the most esoteric writer that you can find to friends and family, and keep watching them turn a blind eye to everything you have to say. Instead, talk about these things, talk about the MPs in their lives. And then you'll be talking about something that they can see, talking about something that they can experience. We have Europe. No, Michael, your opinion on the strange death of Europe by Douglas Murray. I have not read that yet. That I'll have to look into. Okay, so on the other end of the spectrum, what have you all been taught about those who disagree? This is probably going to be a little bit more relevant for this group. What have you been taught about those who disagree with the idea that white people are uniquely responsible for slavery? Now, don't consciously think about this. What instantly comes to mind? What instantly comes to mind when I say those who disagree with the idea, the MP, that white people are uniquely responsible for slavery? What do you know about such people? Roy Danton, super chatting $4.99. So I actually just remembered another MP from a previously lost discussion. If what you are saying was true, then why is it not common knowledge? Great one. That is fantastic, Roy. That is really great. That is a fantastic MP that is used on us. You can see that there are going to be a host of MPs that everyone is going to be able to recognize almost immediately. And then there are going to be some that are going to be a little bit more difficult. You have to dig a little bit more deeply to find them. That's a great one that Roy just identified. And then there are going to be some that are going to be unique to each specific Western country. So what do you all know about people who disagree? There you go. Hey, you writes, white ring extremist, right-wing extremist. Odin writes, they are racist bigots. They want to kill many millions of people. Right, exactly. Lisa writes, dangerous people, evil, crazy, lying, in denial. Perfect. Exactly. You're absolutely right. That is a great example of SIM, the structural interpretive mandates that are connected to every MP. You learn the precept. Make sure everybody's getting this. You learn the precept. This is the first half of the MP. And then you have the SIM, which tells you what to think about the MP, those who agree and those who disagree. Both extremely important. They are what make the MP work. They are what controls you and everyone you know, and me. They are the things that we have to build counter triggers for. And that is something that we will talk about in a future Going Free stream as well. Because you cannot erase them once they are in the subconscious mind. That's another important element to discuss in the future. So it takes a really discerning mind to be able to, I thought I saw no, maybe not. It takes a really discerning mind to be able to, and an intelligent mind, to be able to dig into oneself. And that's what Going Free is all about. It is, and in the book, if you have received Going Free, I'm Not going to hold it against you because you are so used, like the rest of us, so used to losing that another idea out there, another book, another breakdown or something is just a really another loss. But in Born or in Go Free, you are instructed to perform some exercises. Most of you did not perform those exercises, did you? Most of you thought, I don't need to do that. But in fact, you do need to do that. You absolutely need to do that. One of the reasons why, as I just said, is because you think this is just going to be another loss. It's going to be another way to lose in the cause for white well-being. I understand that. I understand having that pessimistic view. But this is different. People are winning with this. They're giving their testimonies with this of these successes they're having. And when indeed people do move forward and begin to and dig these things out of themselves, you have to identify the ones that are in you. Once they do dig into those things, find where they lie in their subconscious minds, they then are able to really begin going free. You're not going free by just trying to, it's like having a garden of weeds and thinking you're just going to dump a bunch of topsoil on it and it's going to all be fine. Well, no, it's not going to all be fine. The weeds are going to come through. All right, you're not going to also, the difference though with the garden is you're not going to be able to pull those weeds out. You can't extirpate an MP that you've been infected with that's worked its way into your subconscious mind. Instead, maybe it's more analogous to placing a glass over top of the weed and then putting the topsoil on. The weed then cannot come to the surface again. But the other issue is when it comes to digging into yourself and finding these MPs as one of the primary steps to going free is the lack of courage. It takes a hell of a lot of courage to take a hard look in the mirror and to see where you are infected. But if you do not take that step, if you do not move forward and genuinely write these things down and do it on a daily basis, and I'm going to tell you about one individual right now. I don't think he's gotten back to me on whether or not I can say who he is. So I won't be saying who he is. I'll just say that he is a gentleman in the UK. Looks like Works Harder just super chatted $5, some shekels for the sip jar. I see. I see how you English people are. Thank you very much. All right. So let's see if we have anything else. Any other questions? Now, if you all have any questions as I'm working through this, stop me. Stop me and let's talk about it. You all have to know how to go free so that you can cure yourselves and then help others go free. You can help your friends and family. That is going to make your life infinitely better. That is going to make our people's lives infinitely better. Lordy Sparker writes, NWG is knocking these live streams out of the park. Sorry to use the sports ball analogy. No, that's fine to use a sports ball analogy. We all know. In fact, I right-handed used to hit many home runs. Left-handed, higher batting average, right-handed home runs. Now I see the good Mr. Underhill in the chat today. Thank you so much for being here. And yes, the individual I exchanged emails with, if he wants me to mention who he is, then I will definitely do that. Otherwise, he is a courageous and honorable gentleman in the UK. Lou, yes, I am ambidextrous. Oh, does it say that if you're ambidextrous, it's a high IQ? I didn't know that there was a connection. All right. So the thing I wanted to mention though is this particular individual, he had a typical response or a typical outcome for those who actively engage in the exercises, which you have to do if this is going to work for you. This is like working out. You cannot read about how to do a proper push-up and get in shape. You cannot read about how to do a proper push-up and build your chest and build your lats and build your tris. You have to actually do the push-ups. That is how going free works. Please, this is it is not something that just doesn't work, and so it's just like a little interest to you. It's not something that you're going to there'll be no result from, or you're going to end up with the same outcomes, the same anti-white losses again and again as you have in the past. This is completely different. We're talking about healing you psychologically. This is why the governments of Europe are so afraid, because this is a cultural, spiritual, psychological approach. It encompasses all of the human mind, all of the human animal, spirit, blood, flesh. Fred writes, I actually think all you need to know about the white nationalism hearing video might be the cause of your ban. It struck the gold vein. And well, it absolutely, and unless we get these anti-whites to come forward and confess, we are left with trying to guess. Now, let's make sure that nobody's super chats have gone by. Again, like I said, folks, please stop me. We're not going to go as long with today's stream as we normally do. So if I say something you don't understand, you're not sure, stop me, and I will make sure to address it. DW super chatting with $5. What do you think of these Easter worshipers being killed? Do we call other groups Hanukkah worshipers or Ramadan worshipers? Well, of course not. And this is something we mentioned on. Thank you very much for the investment in white well-being, by the way, DW, and for being a great member of our community for going free. This is something that I spoke briefly about on Tutar, and that is that when the anti-whites open their mouths in the regime's media, that's all of the establishment media, when they open their mouths, you're not learning anything about the event in question. They are telling you everything you need to know about them. That is what you learn when they open their mouths. When they say that Easter worshipers, rather than referring to Christians, they are telling you that they are anti-white. What's happening there with these attacks on churches and cathedrals and the like? What's happening is hush crimes. These crimes contradict the anti-white narrative. We've spoken about this. Since they contradict the anti-white narrative, the anti-whites want to minimize those stories where they have to report on them. Where they don't have to report on them, they're going to bury them under your feet so you never learn about them. Because according to the anti-white narrative, the white race, Western civilization, is the personification of pure evil on planet Earth, and non-whites are always the victims. And so it cannot be. And now, if you get a little confusion here, and you think, well, these people that were murdered were non-white Christians or what have you. Christianity, and the further you go free, this will all make perfect sense to you, and you'll be able to retrodict everything that has gone before and predict what the anti-whites are about to do. Christianity is still the religion of the white race. It is, and as long as it is, it will continue to be attacked as a manifestation of the white race. For as much as you can say, well, it was started by this group or what have you, the white race made Christianity what it became in Europe, and then we exported it. It is something that potentially or conceivably could still be used as a rallying cry to save Western kind from this anti-white conclusion, this grisly conclusion that they would like for us. And so as long as Christianity is in that role, as long as it still echoes from that glorious past, when we made it into something that was more a manifestation of our biospirit, as long as it serves in that role, it will be attacked as our statues, our historic statues are attacked and pulled down, as the names on our streets and monuments are changed to reflect anti-whites and non-whites. It will be seen as a manifestation of Western civilization and taken down. And it can get a little bit more complicated in that anti-whites can look at non-white Christians around the world as potential bolsters of white Christianity and Western civilization. Their money, their time, their energy could go to their fellow Christians in these white nations, and so therefore is another threat. Rest assured that if no white people practiced Christianity, and it was only a non-white religion, it would be shoved down your throat from dawn till dusk and all through the night. So rest assured, it has everything to do. I know there are a lot of Christians out there that want to say, no, it's all about Jesus Christ, and it's about, and I understand that that position, but there is no arguing against the reality that if white people didn't practice it and say blacks did, we would be forced to endure manger scenes everywhere we went during Christmas time. So thank you very much for that super chat and that comment, DW. Let's see what else we have here. All right. So let's keep moving. Now, this English gentleman's experience is, as I say, is typical for a person who wants to go free, who's going free, and they've taken the step to write down the MPs that they can identify in themselves. In that, the first day, he only came up with 12. The very first day, I say only. I've spoken with people who are beginning to go free, and they can find like 2 or 3 in themselves. And I know that there is a minimum of 100 in them. Each and every one of you. And we can talk about that just for a quick minute. What do you think that these meme pathogens, these ideas that circumscribe your thought, that cause intense depression, that cause you to feel depressed about, and in ways instigating stressors that you don't even know are taking place. And we know, what do we know about stress? We know that stress can not only exacerbate disease, but it even causes disease by itself. Now, you are infected with these ideas at the very beginning of your life. So what do you think this does to the totality of your life, to this stress building up inside of you day after day after day, to these ideas that circumscribe your thoughts about what you can and cannot achieve, to these ideas that cause you to make dangerous or even deadly or otherwise deleterious or injurious decisions? What does that do to your life? What have you missed out on? Because you were infected with meme pathogens, and they have hobbled you, they have crippled you in ways that you can't even fathom the degree. What do you think that has done to you? Can any of you right now name some ways, some bad decisions that you have made in life as a result of being infected with MPs? I just had a conversation with a guy the other day who dated non-white women because he thought that we didn't have a culture, and if we did have a culture, that it was just something to hate and despise. So he wanted to run away from it, as we see with the majority of white people who go out and take non-whites as dates or spouses. Certainly not in every case, but in most cases. We see white people who are running away from the white identity as quickly as they can. They want to find some other identity for themselves. Now, what happened to him with those dangerous decisions? Well, in one case, some non-whites beat the hell out of him for dating their women. He could have died. What bad decisions have you made in your life because you were infected with MPs? What have you missed out on because you thought you couldn't do that job over there because of X, Y, or Z, because of this MP or that MP? One of the big steps of going free is first you identify these MPs. First you identify the MPs. And then, as you work through the text, as you work through the material, you work on identifying how those MPs contributed to negative aspects of your life, bad decisions, potentially diseases, exacerbation of diseases you already have. If your doctor can tell you that whatever disease you have is made worse by stress, MPs are responsible for that, folks. If the elimination of stress can relieve the disease you're suffering from, then going free can help you with that disease. Does that make sense? Are you beginning to see how much potential is here for you? You have a great and glorious spirit inside of you as a member of Western Kind. All of our greatest heroes and champions and healers, they are all inside of you, but they are all muzzled. They are all handicapped by MPs that are inside of you. Are you not ready to go free of that? Are you not ready to be a better you? Are you not ready to leave that sickness behind? Are you not ready to leave those bad decisions behind? Are you not ready to leave that ignorance behind, those false deductions behind, that crippled mentality behind? Are you not ready to go free of that and be brighter, healthier, faster, quicker, more agile, more adept? Because all of that is available to all of us who go free of these meme pathogens. This is not just some little curiosity, for God's sake. This is the salvation of you as an individual and of our people as a whole. So this good English gentleman's experience is pretty normal. First day he sits down, he finds 12. Second day he sits down, he finds 40. He finds a total of 40 by day 2. How many of you out there think that you have 40 MPs infecting your subconscious mind? We can take some challenge, because I've talked with people before, and they cite like 2 or 3 or 5, and then they'll say this often happens with older folks, because they think that, well, back when I was a kid, there just weren't any hogwash. I can watch all your old black and white TV shows and movies and find every bit as many MPs as we have today. They're diversified today because we have a more multifarious environment, but they were there and as powerful as they are today. But I'll have them say, well, they're this, that, and the other one. And then I'll say, well, what about this? And they'll say, oh, yeah, that's true. And then what about that? Oh, that's true, too. I could go on and on and on with them. So how many out there think they only have 40 MPs, or they only have 10 MPs that they are infected with? If you do, there's a lot of healing to do. Let's see. Old Mrs. Ramblewood. A few years ago, I was very sick. I believed I did not deserve the health because I am white, and it would be unfair to non-whites. That is not the first time that I've had a white person, in this case is writing, but say to me that her health and her looks were undeserved. Because, and this goes to an MP of a woman I spoke to just today, and I'll mention it right now because that's coming up, and it fits together perfectly. And that is this idea, and this again, Christianity is coming up a lot in this stream. And again, I say to Christian practitioners, who you almost all of you are being misled by these preachers and priests who are interpreting the doctrine by way of an anti-white lens. So it's not your fault. It is your duty to get away from them, and certainly your duty to protect your wife and children, or if you are the mother, your husband and your children. It is your duty to protect them from this acidic interpretation. But the idea here is that this meme pathogen is that you existed before you were born. How many of you have heard the meme pathogen that you existed before you were born? Let's see. Mr. Green here writes, how do you identify them? What if you are in a state of denial but need help? Mr. Green perfectly asked. A lot of people are in a state of denial, coming to these uh, discussions, these chats, learning from others, seeing others, uh, mentioning MPs with which they are infected, seeing those MPs in the world. That is the best medicine. You will know. You will know. Laura writes, no white guilt Sunday school songs were the worst. They absolutely were. They were very corrosive for me and the other children growing up. Let's see here. DW, I could name many. I didn't have positive influence for much of my life. Fathers are really important for us. Men, we need to try to become paragons of society and help our children. You absolutely. Men have to be men again. And if you need some spine, I will lend you some of mine. Okay, well, back to I think it was Mr. Green. We are identifying them here. There are going to be a whole list of them in the second edition of MPs of Go Free that you'll be able to learn from them as well. And once you learn what some of them look like, you'll be able to spot them moving forward. We have Kenneth Carl writing, there is this one church in my town. I'm not sure which one it's called. A friend of mine said once a month, a rabbi comes in to talk about anti-Semitism. I have heard that before as well. I have friends, church friends who go to church, and they complain to me that every I don't know if it was every month, but every so many months, a rabbi will come, or an actual citizen of Israel will come, not necessarily a rabbi, and will come and speak to them about Israel and the Jewish people and etc. This is why I say that Christians are being misled. Okay, so has anybody heard that the MP that you exist before you were born? This is a very powerful MP, and you absolutely need to reject it. You were nothing before you were born. You could not be any race other than the race you are. You could not have belonged to any community other than the community to which you belong. This idea that you existed before you were born undermines our service to white well-being, because it makes of your birth and your identity nothing more than chance. That's all it does. And this woman that I was speaking with, this good lady that I was speaking with, her child had said to her that the child wished that another child, a non-white child, had been born white. That relation, that woe, if it stays in that child, which it won't, that child has just given the mother, that will grow into a rejection of white well-being, because we are all just spirits then, without any identity. And this biospirit is nothing more than a suit we wear. Well, if this is nothing more than a suit we wear, then there is no reason to preserve it, no reason to fight for it, no reason to defend yourselves, no reason why not to miscegenate yourself out of existence. No, this is a very deadly MP. And if you have been believing it up until now, you need to think deeply and hardly, deep and hard about rejecting this in your system. And you need to teach your children and your loved ones that it is also indeed fraudulent, that it is an MP, and it denies us the right to white well-being. You cannot be anything other than you are. I've had many conversations with white people who have said, well, it was just luck of the draw that I was born white. And so therefore, we have to give up everything that our ancestors have worked for and that is rightfully ours to the non-white communities because it was just luck of the draw that they were born into those communities. No, folks, you could not have been anything other than what you are, and they could not have been anything other than what they are. If and I'm this is not an argument against a human animal having a soul by any means. If you want to believe that the human animal has a soul, then that soul came into existence at conception or whenever you want to believe it comes into existence. But it absolutely does not exist prior to that. You're not sitting on like the bench waiting for your opportunity to get a body, and it's going to just be doled out by chance. And look at you. You ended up with a white body, and therefore you have all of this meme pathogen white privilege. And since you're just lucky, do you see how this is a root issue that if it's not addressed, it results in innumerable injurious elements for our people. Crypto Chad, super chatting with $10. Thank you very much. Can someone put up a wiki for MPs? People could post MPs they have identified in a categorized fashion. Also, I have removed many MPs, but then again, my autism is like concrete for the weeds. Well, you can't technically, once you're infected, they can't be removed or extirpated, but you can develop counter triggers, which we do in Go Free. We will talk about on these streams as well. And they are triggered as soon as an MP is triggered and essentially negates them. That's how this works. Roy Danton's asking, do you mean in the context of Buddhism or that rebirth nonsense? No, I'm speaking about generally, I have met white people who think that they existed as a soul, and this has been Christians, that they existed as a soul in heaven or wherever, and they were just waiting to be born to a mother and father. And so essentially then it's just chance that you ended up being born as a white person. And that is, I'm sure you all, if you haven't thought about it before, you all will be thinking about it for hours after the stream today, about how many ways that harms the fight for white well-being. And you can ask people too. I've asked people outright, do you think you existed prior to being born? And then people will think, yeah. And then they admit to you that they were a soul prior to birth. You have to disabuse them of that nonsense. Celtic writes, DNA has memory. We are our ancestors. We are indeed. That is it's a kind of a complicated subject, and it can lead people into some weeds that can be confusing. But superficially, we can say that indeed. I see Jennifer P is here. Great to see you. I think Lacey Lynn was here last week. I don't know if I mentioned her. I think she went by. I think she was one of the ones that may have super chatted and not been displayed on my screen. I hope you all are keeping an eye out for me so that I don't miss anyone. I'm going to update this screen over here to see. I don't think I've missed any others. Okay. So let's go through what I want to do quickly here at the end. I mentioned that one. Let's get we had some of you talking about some MPs that you've identified. Let's talk about some of the MPs from this good gentleman's list and get some of yours as well and any questions that you might have of this before we wrap up today. So we had the first one, in fact, that he identified in himself was that whites are uniquely responsible for slavery. And we use that today as our example to demonstrate how a sim operates. We have a question for what is a meme pathogen, MP for short. Those are the precepts, anti-white precepts, such as whites are uniquely responsible for slavery. Attached to That precept is something called a SIM, structural interpretive mandate, which tells you what to think about the precept, the kind of people who believe it, and the kind of people who disagree with it. That is what an MP is. You have to understand that you are ill. You have to understand that you did not escape any of this. Some people, and I mentioned a woman in the first edition, I probably will keep her in the second edition. I mentioned a woman who was very proud, and she was very intelligent and took a lot of pride, and she takes a lot of pride in her intelligence. And she also had a conservative upbringing, and she took a little bit of offense to the thought that she could have been infected with meme-pathogens. But after investigating and taking the time and having the courage to truly look inside herself and see, are these ideas inside of me? Discovered that indeed they are inside of her. So to her credit, and also to her health and well-being, because after identifying them, you can then begin to connect them to the things that you have done wrong in your life, and then prevent them from causing you to make more bad decisions, or circumscribing more of your thought and thinking. And also your relieve the stress that are caused by these meme pathogens. Once you develop the counter triggers to these meme pathogens, the stress that is engendered by the meme pathogen, the MP, is negated, and you can become healthier. Why? Because if you can become healthier by reducing stress, then you can become healthier by negating meme pathogens. Does that make sense? No weird health claim here. This is all very straightforward and simple stuff to understand. Logical stuff to understand. Jules Citizen, whites are uniquely responsible for slavery, the abolishment of slavery. Right. We are uniquely responsible. Whites are uniquely responsible for the abolishment. Exactly. And that can be something you use in an argument for someone. That can be used as a MC, a meme curative, which we will get into on another show. Right now, we are working on identifying, and right to Mr. Green's point, really, how do we identify MPs? This is how we begin, and that is we teach you how to see the snake amid the leaf litter. Once I teach you how to see the snake amid the leaf litter, once I show you how to do that, if you keep that training, you'll spot them everywhere you go in the wilderness. That is how identifying MPs works. So what are some other MPs that you all have seen before we wrap up here today? We have most white people will never overcome white noir. That's another MP. Of course, the anti-whites don't phrase it as white noir. White noir being the sickness that we manifest. All of those things that we're talking about, mental, physical, spiritual sickness that are engendered by meme pathogens, that is what we call white noir. How about this one for a meme pathogen? Blondes are unintelligent. How many of you have heard that before? That blonde people are unintelligent. I want you all, if someone begins telling you a joke about blondes again, to angrily stop them. If you're a white person, blonde is in you somewhere. Even if you don't have blonde hair, they are insulting white people. I want you to angrily stop them. Or how about the red-haired people are sickly? How many of you have heard the meme pathogen that red-haired people are sickly? That's another one. How about the meme pathogen that this good gentleman identified? Whites lack physical prowess. White males. What about this MP? That white males are unable to dance. How many have heard that MP? Sometimes applied to women, but most of the time applied to white males. Roy Danton saying, did I see the last super chat on the alternative? It was one of your super chats? Can you just rewrite it and tag me, good sir? Nothing is showing up for me here. Laurel, great one. We all bleed red. That is a fantastic example of an MP. It is analogous to the we just spoke about a moment ago, in that, well, it was just chance that you ended up in a white person's body. You existed before, but now it's just chance. Oh, this one, Mary Moon, has a great meme pathogen that redheads have terrible tempers. Right? They're just irrational, and really, that's what that meme pathogen means. That they're just irrational. BJ asking, when will you release the second edition? Looking to buy it for a few people, including myself. Well, I am working on it, and we are going to make it happen ASAP. The first will probably be just a digital version, but it'll be a print version as well. How about the meme pathogen that white culture is inferior to non-white culture? How many of you have heard that? Good Mackie writes, the blondes are dumb meme literally comes from Hollywood. Well said, exactly. Jules Citizen saying that Marilyn Monroe's IQ was 160 plus. I didn't know that. Let's see, what other meme pathogens do we have? Mr. Green writing, whites are physically inferior, specifically citing strength to non-whites. It's another great example of an MP. Well done. Lisa, absolutely. Very well said. The jokes about the Polish saying that they are dumb. Would you be able to make jokes about the Sephardic Jews saying the same thing? I think not. Ragnaroks, white people can't cook. White food is flavorless, as well as white people have no culture. Brilliant. All fantastic MPs. And so this is what I want you all to be doing. As I read through a few more of these and a few more of your own that you supply here in the chat before we wrap up here today, I want you all to use today or tonight or tomorrow, if the day is running late for you, where you are in the world, to begin your list of the MPs that come to mind. Now, the MPs that come to mind are going to be the ones you're infected with. The first ones that come to mind are going to be the ones that are most influential at that moment, not in your whole life, but at that moment. They're going to be the ones that are most influential on your thinking, on your activities, everything at that moment in your life. As you dig deeper, and this is going to be, and I want you all to come back to me and we're going to talk about this. As you dig deeper, you're going to come across other MPs from different stages in your life. You'll remember roughly where they came up, and you're going to immediately see how that specific MP played a deleterious role in your life. It's one of the saddest things that we have to go through when going free, is to realize that we ruined maybe an entire decade or more of our lives based on an MP or an MP cluster. Because these infections were inserted in us by these anti-white bastards who run the news and entertainment media and the universities. And you imbibed these things when you didn't know any better. It started then when you were just a child and you could be convinced of the Easter Bunny. You were convinced of many of these MPs, some of the most powerful ones, and they stuck in your mind. And the deeper that they were laid with layer after layer after layer of memories of your life, the more power they wielded. And then you realize truly how deeply you have been wounded in your life. What kind of life could you have led? How much could you have accomplished? What could you have done? Who could you have brought into this world? What about the MPs affecting other whites and their influence over you? How much better could your life have been? Healthier could your life have been? Longer your life could have been more love in your life, more wealth in your life, more education in your life, had you not been infected with these MPs, had your friends, family, and strangers who influenced your life been infected with these MPs? How many of you had parents with low expectations for you because they were infected with MPs? How many of you had low expectations for yourself because you were infected with these MPs? You have no idea how deeply, at this moment, you have no idea how deeply it has altered your life, the only one you get. But if you keep going free, you'll realize, and then you'll begin to understand that if it affected you that deeply, when you combine this in its aggregate for the totality of our people, what has it done to us? We don't build Notre Dame cathedrals anymore, not because the biospirit is missing in us, but because it has been choked to death, because it has been asphyxiated by the anti-whites. You want that Western dawn like I do. The only way we are going to have it is by going free. We have to go free of their poisoning. We have to rid ourselves of these straitjackets, break free of their mental prison. There is a Galileo in all of you. There is a Shakespeare in all of you. There is a General Patton in all of you. There is a Neil Armstrong in all of you. But they can't get free if they are throttled by the MPs. Whites are not as cool as non-whites. White people have no culture. Whites don't have music. White people are oppressors. Whites don't exist. How about that for an MP? DW super chatting with $10. MP number one, you are inherently racist and you purposefully benefit from your ancestry regardless of your social status. It's a lose-lose conclusion and couldn't possibly be more anti-white. Beautifully written, DW. Absolutely. They said it was, and that speaks directly to what I was saying earlier in this stream, that the anti-whites set up these circuit boards of thought so that every conclusion that you can arrive at is an anti-white conclusion. I have done the exact opposite. I have set up a circuit board of thoughts so that every thought leads you to white well-being. You could not conclude something different than service to white well-being. Why did I do that? Because if I did otherwise, I would have to be with you. Every time you had a question, every time you had a circumstance in your life, and there isn't that possibility. I'm not here so that you can hear me talk and walk away from this and think, well, that guy sounded like he knew his stuff. I'm here to empower you so that you will go out into the world. You will be a freer and better and stronger and healthier and smarter you. And then you will transfer that to those around you. That is why I'm here. That is why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why today we're talking about MPs so that you will see them in your lives. I want you all tweeting them like you are rabid over the next couple days. Everyone you think of, I want you to write in a tweet or a gab, MP, Meme-Pathogen, and then write it out what it is. Get everybody talking about what MPs are. Let's make this wave move forward. Let's make this something that is part of the lexicon of the entire white positive sphere. Why? So that they can all ask, like they're now doing about things like white well-being. Where did that come from? Boy, that really works. And then they end up coming back to the source, and they too go free. This is how all the questions that are always asked. How are we going to save our people? How are we going to recapture our destiny? This is how we recapture our destiny. You're not going to recapture your destiny, no matter how many guns you have, no matter what document you write with precepts and ideas that you think will survive eternity, no matter what flag you draw up, no matter what, you're not going to win if you have a sick people. If you're going to have a people who are mentally crippled by the anti-whites, you haven't a chance. Instead, here you have a way to receive liberation. Here you have a way to liberate yourselves, and then that liberation can be applied to every circumstance across the West. That is what the anti-whites fear, that this can be personalized. This lexicon, these arguments can be personalized. This curative, this curative contagion can be spread irrespective of language, irrespective of the little different hues of Western civilization, irrespective of the music, irrespective of the dress, irrespective of the political parties that operate in a nation's country. It can be spread to all of that and personalized. That is what they fear. That is why they have to shut this down. That is why we, as advocates of white well-being, have to spread this with every breath, with every dollar, with every ounce of energy we can muster. What are some more meme pathogens? I want everybody talking about these. Whites don't have a right to a homeland, but non-whites do. Have you heard that one? Specific. Here's a specific MP. The British ethnicity doesn't exist. That is an example of a specific MP for white people that are applied to whites in the UK. The same exact one will apply, but switched for France, for Germany. There's no such thing as a German ethnicity. Another meme pathogen. There's no such thing as a French ethnicity. Another meme pathogen. White brotherhood is evil. Caring about white people is evil. Caring about non-white people is good. Roy Danton, 1999, super chat. Thank you deeply, my good brother. He writes, you just answered this perfectly. What held me back the most was the claim that we had nothing of value to say, and we could only respond to anti-whiteism by violent or disrespectful action. Exactly. Well done. We have the old Miss Ramblewood, the out of Africa theory is an MP. Absolutely. Andre Boston giving me thumbs up. Thank you very much for that. DW, can we also spread that stockpiling water and food can be shared with your white children? I don't want to think about the idea of spreading bullets. You can absolutely prepare for, as we say here in the States, a rainy day. Just remember, you're not going to survive forever. We need another way to recapture our destiny. You cannot survive forever on your own. MC, Pirates were pretty sick, but they won. Just look at Sir Henry Morgan. Not sure about what you mean exactly about that. The melting pot myth. Exactly. The melting pot. This is, if this is anything, ladies and gentlemen, the West is a witch's cauldron that is bubbling and on the verge of exploding with conflict between the different groups. Any fear, here's another meme pathogen. Any fear of non-white groups is bigotry. So the normal healthy fear that you feel about a non-white neighborhood where crime is through the roof, where the people are clearly violent, that is bigotry. Another great example. That one particularly affects white women, I notice, that they feel like, no, I've got to trust them or I'm a bigot. White culture is of no value. Heritage is unimportant. That is only applied to white people. When it comes to non-white people, heritage is celebrated by white people who encourage the non-whites to celebrate their heritage. See what else we have. Another meme pathogen, whites owe non-whites and indefinite debt for past uh, uh, infractions or supposed crimes committed against them. But also, on the other side of the coin, this is really a great MP, that whites are indebted to non-whites for all of the altruism that they have shown toward us throughout history. Imagine that as an MP. And that white people actually believe that they are infected with this, and then that is in their subconscious mind influencing their thinking, that we owe the non-whites because of this period or that period where they helped carry some logs or some stones to help us rebuild a building. O- Odin Allfather, a fantastic meme pathogen, that having children is too expensive, always applied to white people. Whenever you see that uh, questioned in one of the regime's magazines or on the television or what have you, and they're always asking, are children too expensive? Are they too much trouble? It's always a white father, a white mother, and white babies that they show in the imagery. That's always what they show. But then when they talk about the joy of parenting, it is race desecrating couples, nation desecrating couples with mixed children, and a celebration of white erasure. All right, the last one I will say from this list, and then we'll get any last comments from you all, and we will wrap up today. It's been a fantastic stream, and we will talk all about our what we're going to be doing next. Fred, a great one. White children are bad for the environment. Absolutely. Again, it's always that meme pathogen is always and you see how subtle this gets, ladies and gentlemen. You're learning. They'll bring up, just like they did with the our children, are they too much trouble? Do they cost too much? Or are children bad for the environment? Whenever they bring this meme pathogen forward, it's always with the visuals of white children and white families. They have no problem showing white men and white women together and white babies when they want to discourage whites from reproducing. They've got no problem. So you see how specific this can get. And I want you to do this. I want you all to do this. When you create your list, it doesn't have to be a complete list. Don't ever sit down and say, this is my complete list of the MPs that I am infected with, because you will find another the moment you do that. When you write down a list that you think is significant of MPs that you are infected with, go to my website, nowhiteguilt.org, and email me that list so that I can include any that we don't already have in the forthcoming second edition of Go Free, so that it can help others. And then, not only can you help more of our brothers and sisters that way, and you have no idea what you might accomplish by doing that. Let me just say, but I'll say this here. Take some of those MPs that you write down that you are infected with and tweet and gab that, or post it on Facebook, post it on VK. I watched a stream today with No White Guilt. Here's the link to it. Or don't bother linking to it. Don't mention that it came from me. I couldn't care less. Save our people. Recapture our destiny. Tell these people, these are the MPs, meme pathogens, that I am infected with and that you are almost assuredly affected with as well, infected with. Ask them then, what MPs are you infected with? What MPs have undermined your life and your potential? What could you have been, what could you have done? What about the MPs that led those girls a couple months back into that Muslim territory where they were beheaded? Those ideas, some of those ideas, like you can't, like we were just talking about the MP a moment ago, where being afraid of a non-white area means that you're a bigot. So those young girls were obviously infected with that meme pathogen. So when that natural instinct said, that's dangerous, the meme pathogen said, based on the SIM, the structural interpretive mandate, no, you are an ugly person for thinking that. You are an evil person for thinking that. You are uneducated, unintelligent. No, you need to think the other side of the coin. You need to think that it is bigotry to be afraid of them. because the smart people, the beautiful people, the educated people think those things. And then they trotted off to that Muslim territory and had their heads cut off. So, did meme pathogens affect their lives? How about the lives of their family members? How about the lives of their boyfriends back home? Did it affect their lives? Do you see how deeply this goes? If we have to get in there with scalpel and and hammer, we will dig these things out. We will create these counter triggers and we will heal ourselves. And I will see among your midst the next Beethoven. I will see among your midst the next General Patton. That is how we will go free. But what I wanted to say, though, was, and connected directly to what I said about those young girls, you tweet today or you email me a meme pathogen that you're infected with that I don't already know exists, and it ends up in Go Free, or you tweet it or you gab it today, and it reaches someone out there who hasn't thought about it before, and they take that next step to learn more about going free, and they begin going free. And if they had not done that because you had not played your part, they would have made a decision to trot off to the Muslim country, or they would have made the decision to do X, Y, or Z, or the stress building up in their system would have brought to the surface the cancer that would have otherwise lain dormant for the totality of their lives. Is this beginning to make sense? Are you beginning to see the ramifications? It's not a simple goddamn idea that's in your head. It's something that is destroying your life. It's something that is destroying the lives of our loved ones and therefore the lives of our people. Now you know that what you put in your head is more important than what you put in your mouth. If you would not just put anything in your mouth, any food, any drink in your mouth, if you would not just take any injection into your arm, you better put what goes into your head ahead of those things. Because what goes into your head is going to determine what kind of person you are when it comes to what you put in your mouth, what you inject into your system. The final meme pathogen that I'm going to mention today from the list is, and it works in every country, slightly different for each country, is that you are a country of immigrants. That is one of the most powerful that we endure today. And I want you to share this with people, that this is a meme pathogen, that ours are countries of immigrants. This is not a big box store that we stumbled upon. Our countries are the manifestation of our biospirits. There is no country to immigrate to. Western civilization is us. I want you talking about this. I want you tweeting and gabbing these things. I want you to write to me with these meme pathogens. I want people to know. I want you to go into the other comment sections of other shows and talk about the MPs that you and others are infected with. I want you to share these things and help others to go free. Help yourself to go free. Let's see what a couple of the final super chats and statements are, and then we're going to shut down for today. DW writing with $5. I hope women are listening to this and don't think children are too expensive. Indoctrination of appearance became our superficial society. It precisely. Very well said. What else do we have here? Mary Moon with a heart. Jennifer P with a heart. Thank you very much. Mr. Green, black slaves invented things to make lives easier, but we stole their white, was stolen by their white masters. Exactly, another meme pathogen. Non-whites are as responsible for building America as cows are responsible for building McDonald's. Somebody's asking how old I am. Take a guess. Let's see what else we have here. Luke super chatting $10 by way of the familiar alternative. Or is this old? Oh no, it's this is new. Hope everyone in the community as well just got done work and missed the stream. I'm excited to listen later. All the best. Thank you very much, Luke, for your kind investment in the cause of white well-being. And we look forward to you being with us in the replay. Any final questions? Any final statements? Any final meme pathogens that you are infected with or you think others might be? I want to thank you all for being here today for the cause of recapturing our destiny. There is one thing in this world that can warrant your life, and it is the flame, the fire, the spirit from which you emerge. That's our people. And those trumpets are sounding right now. They're calling you to this fight. They're calling you to this service. You will be empowered by coming to the cause of white well-being. You will be empowered by deciding to go free and persevering on that journey with loyalty and commitment. You will be empowered by Kipping, which is Keep It Promethean. And that's something we will talk about in the future as well. You will be empowered by looking to our biospirit as our leading authority. Mother, we like to say, mother of our inception, child of our creation, father of our destiny. We are masters of destiny. We support each other. No hyper-individualism here. The rising sun in the west will be our doing. It will be because we lift it. When the anti-whites come to you, and when your friends and family come to you with these meme pathogens, I want you to identify them as meme pathogens. When they come to you with this nation of immigrants, Bravo Sierra, you tell them that you cannot be an immigrant to that which emanates from your soul. It is who and what you are. And we, at long last, are going free.